My name is Karen, and my talk is on, this is advancing really quickly, on keep calm and carry yarn. So how many people, when they get an invite for a meeting, just cringe and say, oh great, there is now another hour where I don't get to do any work? So I'm going to tell you one way you can ensure that you will always get something productive out of a meeting. Learn to knit and knit during the meeting. So I'm one of those people, I would be doodling, I would be doing something with my hands anyways. And there has actually been, a few years ago, there was a study that showed that doodling helps to improve concentration and memory during meetings or any other time you're doodling. Personally, I think this is probably just because it keeps you from falling asleep, but knitting has the same effect. It keeps your hands busy, it gives you something to look at when you're just so bored and you want to not fall asleep. So, one thing that happens when you're knitting, you kind of, especially if you've been doing it a long time like I have, you kind of zone out and you don't realize passage of time. When you knit during a meeting where minutes kind of do that relativity thing and they seem like they last for years, it almost makes it tolerable. You will also find that you now have a way when you just violently disagree with whatever the person who is speaking tells you, you can just pretend like you dropped a stitch and you're cursing at your knitting. I have done that a few times. Knitting is also a really good way to relieve stress generally. You find that you, or if you're like me, you make puns in yarn. Other people may not get the joke, but sometimes they will. And sorry, I'm talking faster than I expected to. And you will find that you also start, if you were doodling, you might doodle a coworker. You might start crocheting, in this case, a coworker. This is a voodoo doll I made of a coworker who shall remain nameless. And yes, it's an actual zipper that closes, and I keep it closed. Well, you will also get requests. People say, oh, could you knit me X? Oh, of course I can not knit you X. I'm not here for you. And this is an actual hoodie that I made my cat. Something else you find when you're knitting, it starts to take on, it's a very repetitive process, like a lot of the work that we do when we automate. And yes, I could automate knitting by getting a machine. I do not get a machine because that takes out, well, you can't really carry a knitting machine into a meeting anyways. But the part I like least about knitting is the finishing. And so the machine would be doing the fun, meditative thing, and I would just be finishing. Knitting is very incremental. You have a very small unit, and you start to repeat that unit. And eventually, even though it feels like you're doing something that is not engineering, you are engineering. Even if this is a finger puppet pattern that I came up with. I have made about 6 billion of these things. And it's, every time I change it a little, it gets a little better. The hair looks a little better. I say, oh, I could probably do this collar better. And that's very much like really well-developed systems. You incrementally make it better. You start out, you just have to get something done. Wow, I can change this thing, I can change that thing. So it's something that you can then apply back to your engineering. It teaches patience. I am not a patient person, but doing something that is going to take a long time, you have to learn patience. And so many of the big worthwhile projects we do also require a lot of time, and you have to learn patience. Especially if you work at a startup. I have a laundry list of things that I will get to someday. If you want to be my minion, come talk to me. But especially with younger developers who are early in their career, you have to remind them that it will get better. And knitting can help show them, this is sock. I work on socks. I've been working on this socks for 3 months. It gets done. This stuff will get done. We get better. So that is my talk. This is my mini-me puppet. With one improvement, I have laser eyes now. You can also find me on nightmarebeforedevops.xyz, all one word. Thank you.